Hey guys, welcome to the channel Dit Commando. My name is Ryan, a former Royal Marines commando from the United Kingdom, and today we're going to be reacting to the computer bug that was 7 minutes away from launching a nuke. How would you react if that was the news, guys? Let's find out. Like, share, and subscribe.
The date is November 9th, 1979. The world is locked in the icy grip of the Cold War, a power struggle played out economically and politically between the United States and the Soviet Union. Many, however, fear that after decades of a very uneasy peace, a full-blown military clash is inevitable, and both sides know that such a war will be fought with nuclear weapons. The United States, fearful of being outmatched by the Soviets, has for a long time stockpiled nuclear weapons and enjoyed a historical numerical advantage over the Soviet Union. Just 1 month away from 1980, though, the US has shrunk its nuclear stockpile to around 21,300 weapons, while the Soviet Union has increased it to a whopping 30,000. Most of these are smaller, tactical nuclear weapons meant to be employed against airfields and military formations, but a few thousand are the feared city killers, weapons so powerful they can eradicate entire cities with one blast. The United States is confident that the threat of nuclear war is at its highest only during times of political crisis, such as the...
So here's a question then, quickly: Do we live under the fear of nuclear warheads affecting our day-to-day lives? You know, do we live under that fear anymore? I think we used to, you know, back in the 70s and 80s, maybe the early 90s, but now I don't think anyone has any real kind of motive to use nuclear weapons, because they know if they start that, then it's going to be hell. It's the end for everyone, really, isn't it? So I don't really feel as if there's an actual fear associated with nukes anymore. What do you think? Let me know in the chat.
The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. Yet, when it comes to nuclear weapons, a first strike will determine the winner. And thus, the US has spent billions on building the world's best early warning system, a picket line of over-the-horizon radars run across Alaska into Canada and finally ending at Greenland's east coast, all of them aimed toward the Soviet Union on the other side of the globe. In space, a network of thermal imaging satellites are on constant alert for the telltale heat plumes of an ICBM climbing into the sky, while a second set of smaller radars and satellites constantly scan the oceans for an attack by submarine-launched weapons. American hunter-killer subs constantly prowl for Soviet ballistic missile subs, and thanks to an incredible underwater detection network that spans the world, Soviet subs have an extremely difficult time evading their hunters. The US is confident that it can detect and respond to an attempted Soviet first strike, and while tensions with the Soviet Union are at a historical low, the fear of a bolt-out-of-the-blue attack keeps thousands of American military personnel on constant alert. Buried a half-mile beneath the mountains in the Colorado Rockies and hardened to survive everything but a direct nuclear blast, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD for short, is a joint operation between the American and Canadian military. The agency's primary mission is to detect and respond to nuclear launches anywhere in the world, but it also monitors and protects all airspace across the North American continent. Networked to NORAD via numerous redundancies is every major military command in the US and Canada, as well as the top government leadership of both nations. This information superhub is at the time the world's largest concentration of computing power and the heart of the world's largest communications network.
So is that communications network, is that hub still there? Are they still within the Cheyenne mountain range? Is that where they are now? I mean, we're talking, what, the late 70s, early 80s here, hypothetically. So is that still there now? I'd imagine it probably hasn't moved. It maybe is upgraded in its stature. Let me know in the comments.
It is, however, not immune to human error. It's 2:59 a.m., and deep within the heart of NORAD, an engineer inserts a tape into a computer that's connected directly to the defense network's missile warning system. 3 seconds later, in the big room, the nerve center for NORAD, monitors across the room come to life, displaying missile launch warnings within the Soviet Union. The picket line, or early warnings over the horizon radars, scattered all the way from Alaska to Greenland, confirm launches all across the Soviet Union, though the missiles are still too low in the atmosphere to calculate the origin of their launches or their final trajectory. 20 seconds later, space-based thermal imaging satellites confirm hot pings from within the vicinity of known Soviet missile sites. The alert is immediately broadcast to air defense units in Alaska and Canada at Ellison Air Force Base deep in the heart.
Right, if you're the guy on shift at the time, what is your feelings going to be? What's your first reaction going to look like? a toilet break might be needed, but I doubt you'd be able to take one. I just can't imagine the fear that would actually strike the individual. It's something that they train for every single day, all right, and they understand and they know that this is part of their job. But let's face it, right? Let's be real. It's a big part of their job that they genuinely believe would probably never happen, all right, in their lifetime anyway. But guess what? In this instance, it has.
The heart of Alaska, 10 pilots on alert scramble to throw on their flight gear as a ground crew rushes out into the freezing 30 below winter weather to prepare the alert aircraft for an emergency takeoff. A separate warning sounds at Strategic Air Command Air Force bases around the globe, and in the US, pilots rush to their waiting B-52 nuclear bombers. A portion of the B-52 fleet is kept on constant alert and fully armed with nuclear weapons. The pilots rush through their pre-flight checklists and will be on their way to targets deep in the heart of the Soviet Union within 15 minutes. Flying 24-hour patrols for the last 19 years, the alert also reaches a Strategic Air Command Looking Glass aircraft. Aboard this converted Boeing 707 is a suite of the world's most advanced and jam-proof communications gear, and the aircraft is connected to every American military network in the world.
Wow.
Also aboard the aircraft is a general officer and his battle.
Also on board the aircraft is extremely important people who get paid a lot of money to do nothing most of the time, but in times of need, expected to produce the goods, and this is where they're going to earn their money. Well, you'd like to think so anyway.
Staff, who upon receipt of the alert immediately began preparations to take over command and control of the United States' nuclear force in the case that SAC headquarters are destroyed in the first round of nuclear exchange. In Andrews Air Force Base, just miles outside of Washington, flight crews scramble to prepare and launch the National Emergency Airborne Command Post. This converted passenger liner is hardened against EMP blast and connected to the rest of the military's command and control networks via several satellites and radio redundancy.
I'll tell you something, I'm really impressed with America's contingency plan. I mean, this is what we know of. That's in the public domain, information-wise. It could be a hell of a lot more complex than that, and I suggest it probably is, all right? I do suspect that, but, you know, on face value for what information is out there, you just can't knock them. These guys have thought of everything. They've not bothered about money. They've just went, yeah, how much it costs, we'll do it. And you've got to respect that guy. That's a dominant force to be reckoned with, 100%.
From here, the president or his successor will command the nation through its first and likely last nuclear war and command any surviving forces in the wake of a nuclear annihilation. All of this is happening concurrently within 20 seconds after receipt of the first nuclear launch alert. NORAD's warning already sending thousands of men scrambling as they prepare to retaliate against the Soviet Union and prevent a nuclear decapitation first strike attack. 30 seconds after the alert, the phone rings in National Security Advisor Zbigniew-Brzezinski's home. On the third ring, Brzezinski picks up. The voice on the other end is...
I like the animation there. It was rather fitting to actually how I think it would happen. He'd be sleeping there, and then his eyes just boom. All right, that phone's never rang before, and he's getting called up to his post, all right? Wakey, wakey, it's time to earn your money.
Stressed but professional, and says simply, "We have confirmation of the Soviet nuclear launch. 250 confirmed bogeys with final trajectory to the continental US confirmed. The president has between 3 to 7 minutes to decide on retaliation." Shaking himself out of his sleep stupor, Brzezinski asks the military aide on the other side of the line to confirm that Strategic Air Command has launched its planes. He also asks for further confirmation of launch before he alerts the president. The aide responds with a simple affirmative and hangs up the landline. Stunned and in disbelief, Brzezinski looks over at his sleeping wife. He decides not to wake her. He and everyone else in Washington will be dead within 20 to 30 minutes anyway. Better that she sleep through the end of the world. At Ellison Air Force...
Hang on a minute. What? Hang on, I need to listen to that again. I need to listen to that again. What?
At his sleeping wife. He decides not to wake her. He and everyone else in Washington will be dead within 20 to 30 minutes anyway. Better that she sleep through the end of the world.
Whoa, so he's actually coordinating things with the president, knowing that he's just going to be obliterated anyway. Get the hell out of here. That's a scary proposition. Man, how would you feel in that situation? What would you actually do? Would you wake your wife up if she was asleep at the time? And I think I would. I'd be selfish, man.
At Ellison Air Force Base, the jet engines of 10 F-104 interceptors roar to life. The planes taxi to the alert runway and within moments begin screaming into the sky by pairs. The 10 interceptors tear into a sky rocked by a winter storm at full afterburners, racing to gain altitude and turning toward the Alaskan coast. 5 will fly west, another 5 will fly north. Soon, more will join them, but for the first 15 minutes of World War III, these 10 planes are all that will safeguard the United States from waves of Soviet nuclear bombs. Though they're armed with air-to-air missiles, the F-104s also carry single nuclear-tipped air-to-air missiles with a 0.25 kiloton yield. They can run no risk of a Soviet bomber evading them or their missiles. Arcing away from Ellison Air Force Base, each pilot looks over his shoulder at the quickly fading lights at the base, thinking of their families below, which are blissfully sleeping through the start of World War III.
Wow.
Even if their mission is successful, each man knows that they will never see their families again. Ellison Air Force Base is a prime target for a Soviet.
This is horrendous, man. This is taking a different toll, guys. Doing your job and knowing... Oh, I can't even bear to think about it.
First strike via either submarine-launched ballistic missile or ground-based ICBM. The airbase will launch as many of its fighters and interceptors as possible before being reduced to nuclear rubble. Its pilots on a one-way mission to down as many Soviet bombers as possible before being forced to ditch their aircraft or attempt to find a surviving civilian airfield to land on. A full minute and a half after the first launch alert is received by NORAD, the big wheels of a B-52 begin to turn as the aircraft slowly lumbers down the airstrip. In moments, it'll be airborne, laden with nuclear gravity bombs, which it will drop deep within the heart of the Soviet Union. It will be joined by dozens of its brethren, launching from airfields all across North America, and each one turning north toward the Soviet Union. At Andrews Air Force Base, the National Emergency Airborne Command Post has lifted off, though without the Secretary of Defense or the President as planned. The plane must get out of the immediate vicinity of Washington, D.C. and the general airspace of major eastern seaboard cities in order to avoid being downed by the incoming nuclear strike. The plane will instead later land at a designated and still operational airfield to take on board any surviving civilian leadership, taking off once more before the second volley of Soviet nuclear weapons can strike. All across the heartland of the United States, 10-ton blast-proof concrete doors roll back across hundreds of missile silos. Buried 300 feet into the ground, each silo houses a single intercontinental ballistic missile with pre-programmed targets in the Soviet Union. The missiles contain up to a dozen independently targeting warheads, along with decoys and countermeasures meant to confuse Soviet interceptors. Each major Soviet city is targeted by at least 2 warheads, many by 3 or more, in order to ensure a successful nuclear strike and total destruction of their target. Along with cities, the missiles target large swaths of Soviet Union's fertile eastern.
You know, I heard Joe Rogan talking about this with Neil deGrasse Tyson about whether humans are interesting or not, and whether alien life forms, if they existed, would be interested in humans. And Neil deGrasse Tyson answered no, and Joe Rogan's response was amazing. And I think I'm going to use that in this situation here. He says that humans are pretty interesting, and I think aliens, if they did exist, would be interested in us because... I mean, think about it logically. We actually have these plans in place, all right? Sounds so barbaric, so violent and gruesome and graphic in nature. But we're capable of that. That's the thing. As humans collectively, we're capable of absolute sheer destruction of our own creature, of our own species. And I just think it's crazy. I do think it's crazy. I don't think there's another life form on the planet that is as destructive with intent and with choice as the human beings on this planet. I think we're absolutely stark raving mad, all right? We've got a lot of soul searching to do, and I think it'll take thousands, if not millions of years worth of evolutionary, worth of a moral evolvement, put it that way. I just think our morality is so far from where it actually needs to be. It's crazy. Even the good among us, I think our morality is still so far away from where it needs to be. But hey, I'm getting a little bit philosophical and on morality there. Let me know what you actually think, truthfully, in the chat.
Eastern grasslands, the breadbasket of the nation. Warheads targeting these areas will detonate only upon impacting the ground, blowing hundreds of thousands of tons of dirt and debris across the countryside and causing giant plumes of radioactive fallout. The fallout will make farming impossible for decades and ensure that the Soviet Union starves to death. The opening round of World
Decades, more like centuries, guys, okay? Especially if it's nuclear warheads we're talking about. These lands aren't going to be able to be used for well, for generations and generations and generations. It would literally... That's why this kind of was so bloody dangerous, all right? So dangerous indeed. We just can't go there.
World War III will not only determine national survival, but extinction itself. It's now 2 minutes after the first alert, and using the extreme low-frequency communication system the United States Navy has set up around the globe, American nuclear ballistic missile submarines receive an alert order. Each sub deploys a small buoy to the surface and links up with the nation's military satellite communications network while remaining safely submerged and hidden from view. The subs wait for orders as the crew prepares to deliver their deadly nuclear-tipped cargo. Deep in the depths of the Pacific, Arctic, and Atlantic, as well as the Gulf of Mexico, American nuclear attack submarines receive a similar order, only their job is much different. With the aid of the Navy's SOSUS underwater surveillance system, the US has been able to track nearly every single Soviet ballistic missile sub for over a decade. Soviet subs have thus been unknowingly stalked by technologically superior and far more silent American nuclear attack subs every time they leave Soviet territorial waters. Commanders of attack submarines around the world prepare a firing solution on their quarry, hoping to knock the Soviet ballistic missile submarine fleet out of the water before it can fire a single shot. Seconds later, a second phone call rings and the National Security Advisor's...
There he is. He's had his coffee. He's actually changed his mind on waking his wife up. He's got her up. She's petrified now. And yeah, figures few, there will be brown bread.
Zbigniew Brzezinski's home. The military aid on the other end is blunt and direct. NORAD now detects 2,200 incoming Soviet missiles, and SAC has confirmed the launch of its strategic bombers. The aid tells Brzezinski, however, that there are some issues with the ground-based and satellite assets, which, when queried directly, report no missile launches. Brzezinski thanks the aid and commands him to keep him informed as he hangs up the phone and calls the president. The call with the president lasts only a few brief moments. Both men know that they have only minutes left before a response to a Soviet attack is impossible and waste no time on words. Brzezinski looks over at his still sleeping wife, wondering if this is the last day of his life. Perhaps the last day of the human race. The confusion between NORAD systems and direct queries with early warning assets is troubling. Could the Soviets be jamming their communications or somehow spoofing their early warning systems in order to prevent a counterattack? Could the entire attack be nothing more than a computer error within NORAD systems itself?
That's the thing with these computers, you know. Technical errors and bugs and stuff like that could override and cause absolute chaos. Absolute chaos. I mean, look, this is a potential bug that could wipe out the planet for a simple mistake, something that didn't happen, something that didn't exist, a falsehood. How scary is that? You know, we say human error is bad. Computer error can be worse because, you know, it takes a human to fix that computer in times like this. And, man, I would just be petrified to be in that position. Imagine causing World War III and not even realising that it shouldn't have happened in the first place, all right? I mean, it's mental.
Can he or the President of the United States afford to be wrong? Thousands of feet up in the Alaskan skies, the F-104s speed to their designated air defense zones, coordinating with ground-based radar. Soviet bombers should be inbound by now, as they're much more difficult to detect over long distances versus the launch of thousands of ICBMs. Yet ground-based radar reports nothing but normal civilian air traffic over the Bering Sea, and absolutely no sign of Soviet aircraft over the Kamchatka Peninsula. The U.S. Air Force's PAVE-PAWS early warning radar system is also giving troubling readings. Technically still under construction, some sites on the east and west coast are already operational and scanning the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean for both ICBM and submarine-launched threats. Yet these early phased array radars detect nothing. Phased array technology is new though, and once more the question of equipment reliability looms. Can the United States really afford to be wrong and decide that no threat exists? It's now 3.5 minutes after...
That's one of those things. What do you do? Imagine if it's wrong, but you think, well, actually, what if the other system's wrong that's telling us it's wrong? Should we just launch the nukes anyway? Sorry, Russia, we've just blasted your whole country off the face of the earth because our computer got it wrong. I mean, come on. It's stranger things happen, guys, but that's horrendous if it did.
After the first launch warning, and direct queries to space-based assets are showing negative launches. Ground-based radar across the northern hemisphere confirms this. There are no detected Soviet launches. NORAD is wrong, even as its computer screen shows Soviet ICBMs mere minutes from unleashing nuclear annihilation across the United States. 1 minute later, the president issues a stand-down order for all American nuclear alert forces. Still in bed, next to his sleeping wife, Brzezinski lets out a deep sigh of relief. The Soviet nuclear attack is almost certainly an equipment malfunction, as even right now, NORAD technicians are scouring the computer network for errors. In just a few minutes, they'll discover the computer tape inserted into a unit used for training, and realize that the tape was a training exercise simulating a full-scale nuclear attack against the United States. In the subsequent investigation, though, no answer will be discovered as to how the computer managed to inadvertently feed false data to NORAD's early warning systems and issue a real-world.
Yeah, because let's face it, this is my thought on it. No one would want to do that on purpose, not even the opposition, not to test anything out, because this was a real-time situation in their heads, all right? This could have not been picked up that it was a falsehood, and those warheads could have been deployed in response. So I don't even think this would have been a good idea for, you know, the opposition to do that, all right? So I generally think this was a massive, massive error, all right? And I don't think the truth will come out fully.
World threat. For now, though, that doesn't matter. All that matters is Brzezinski will get to see his wife in the morning after all. He and the rest of humanity will get at least one more day on this planet. He looks at her sleeping next to him and decides not to wake her. No point in telling her the world almost ended 8 minutes ago.
No, and he's oh, I don't know what to think about that. He, depending on his marriage, he might have been quite happy with that situation unfolding. But yeah, computer bug that was 7 minutes away from launching a nuke. That was pretty good. All right, thank God it never happened. I mean, we wouldn't be doing this video right now if it did. Let's face it, and hopefully it never happens in the future, guys. But if you did like this one, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to become a member of my channel, you know, help me do these videos each and every day, then I'd really appreciate that. Okay, they truly do help me out massively with content creation. So yeah, if you want to become a member, press the join button or hit the link in the description, guys. But other than that, I'll see you tomorrow with another video.